You've lived a great life and done well for yourself. But what mark will you leave on the world? How will you inspire future generations? Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand have helped thousands of people answer exactly those questions. If you've ever wondered, what will be my legacy? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Stan and Katie Beth.
Welcome back to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your host, Katie Beth Hand. My guest today is the founder of Hands Up Holidays, Christopher Hill. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We are really excited to have you on the show today.
That makes two of us, Katie Beth.
Fantastic. So before we dive in, and I have a lot of questions for you, but before we dive right in, I was hoping maybe you could take a few minutes and talk to us a little bit about kind of your background and your backstory and what made you interested in travel, conservation, all of the different things. And we'll talk more about your company in a minute, but what really inspired you to go out and create your organization?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Well, in terms of background, I did a law degree and a business degree, and my first job was actually in investment banking in London, England. And in that job, I learned some good business skills. And about 6 years into working in finance, I took a trip to South Africa. And on that trip, in addition to going on safari and exploring the wonders of Cape Town and the garden route, and staying in lovely lodges and everything that South Africa has to offer, I also helped to build a house for a family in one of the townships. And this just enriched the travel experience for me in two main ways. One, it enabled me to interact with the local people and hear their stories and gain insights into their lives. And just prior to starting work in London, I'd traveled for about 9 months through Australia, Africa, and Europe. And it was all incredible, but it was still lacking that element of actually engagement with the local people, which this experience provided. And then secondly, it just felt great to actually make a difference in their lives. And so I got thinking, like I said, I learned some good business skills. Why don't I put them into something I find a bit more meaningful and fulfilling and enable others to have similar experiences to what I just had? And so that was really the catalyst for what became Hands Up Holidays.
That is really cool. And I love that you took something that was unique and fun, something that you enjoyed, and also have incorporated this idea of using that time and that experience to make the world a better place while you're there. So I love travel. I also, obviously, I have 4 kids. And so travel is important to us, but teaching our kids to make the world a better place is also something that's very important to us. So talk to our listeners a little bit about, so Hands Up Holidays, you kind of curate like luxury family volunteer vacations. So it's great vacations that also serve a purpose. What kind of destinations do you plan for people? What type of service projects do you do while you're there?
Yeah. Well, we cover about 30 countries around the world. Most of our clients are American. And so our most popular ones are ones that are relatively close to home. So sort of Central America is our most popular. So Costa Rica, Belize, Guatemala are all popular, and they probably cover a fairly good cross-section of our service projects as well. So for instance, in Guatemala, we offer house building, a bit like I was doing in South Africa. We also, in Belize, we offer the opportunity to install eco-friendly stoves in the homes of rural Mayan villages. And these stoves are great because, one, they replace the open flames that traditional huts use to cook with. And thus, by having an enclosed stove, burns, particularly with young kids running around, are dramatically reduced. And they also have a chimney. And so the incidences of respiratory problems such as asthma dramatically reduced. And then thirdly, they're much more energy efficient. So from an environmental perspective, they're a win as well. And the other great thing is they can be fully installed from start to finish in 2 or 3 days. So it's a great project for a family to work on right from inception through to completion. And we also offer some opportunities to be like a reading partner and help in after schools programs in Belize. And then in Costa Rica, we offer wildlife conservation. And so this is where guests can get involved with helping at a wildlife rescue center, caring for primarily monkeys and parrots, but it could be a range of injured animals. And so preparing their food, maintaining their enclosures, creating enrichments to stimulate the animals. And as I say, so that's a good cross section from teaching to building to wildlife conservation on the service project side. And I should probably clarify that all our trips are fully customized, and they are this combination of the service with more conventional vacation. So whatever you want to do, if it's in Belize, it might be, snorkeling around on the barrier reef, or exploring the ruins, or being to our chocolate making classes, zip lining. Those sort of things are all, as I say, customized for each family.
That is really cool. So it's kind of the best of high-end travel mixed with giving it some purpose in there as well.
You nailed it, Katie Beth. Yeah.
I love it. That sounds so cool. That sounds really cool. So tell me a little bit about, it's such a unique idea. I've not really, you hear about sort of travel service programs, but you're like, living way out and you're roughing it and that type of thing. Who would you say your ideal client? What type of group or family, what type of ages, if they've got kids, what type of, and I know the answer you may have already given, which is you do these kind of based on the client, but is there a certain, age range or type of family, or what is your sort of ideal client base for your trips?
Yeah, that's another great question. I would suggest pretty much, yes, we focus on families. So it comes down to the children's ages, helps certainly determine, is a crucial factor really in the recommendations of what service projects a family gets involved in. And so we typically say that, from about age 5, children can get involved in those wildlife conservation projects. The things I mentioned, like preparing the meals, helping to maintain the enclosures and create enrichments for the animals. Yeah, even young children as young as 5 can get involved in those. And as can teens, absolutely. But we also love to encourage the community service projects for our teenagers, because that's, for me, where the magic really happens, in terms of that, like it happened for me in South Africa, with that engagement, with just learning about how other cultures operate and gaining those insights and learning things around empathy and generosity. And for me, certainly when we launched with Hands Up Holidays, I actually didn't have families in mind. It was sort of young professionals that we were initially targeting, but we were getting bookings from, as I say, primarily out of America and primarily from families. And I was asking them, why are you booking with us? And they said things like, well, our kids come from pretty privileged backgrounds, and we really want them to appreciate how fortunate they are. Or they'd say, we're looking for a great family bonding experience, and this nails it for us. And so really that's resonated with me, and all the more so now that I do have children of my own. And so not to exclude other clients, but certainly primarily we focus on those families, and it's for those reasons. And so the sweet spot of ages, I would say, is around that 8 to 15-year-old sort of mark.
That's cool. That's really neat. And what a great opportunity to be able to teach these young people, even as young as 5. And I have a 6-year-old, so I get that. But as young as 5, ways that they can be a part of this and impact the world. Our 6-year-old loves to get to be a part of whatever our big kids are getting to do. So I like that there's not a really low minimum age for younger kids. We've got a 10-year age gap between our youngest and our oldest. So we have to find things that can make everybody feel included, which is nice. So this is a really cool program for that they could all participate in.
It really is, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, personal question. You've done a lot of travel now. Obviously, you've planned a lot of these trips. I imagine you've taken most of these trips, most of these places as you've been planning them. Do you have a personal favorite, either a personal favorite service project you like to participate in, or a personal favorite place you like to travel?
Yeah, it's very difficult to narrow it down
I
so
knew
much.
that'll be the toughest question I ask you, I promise.
Right. I guess I go with what springs to mind, and that's Bali in Indonesia. And went there, actually took our kids there a couple of years ago and did the combination of some rafting, some mountain biking, cooking class, and beach time. And then our service project was installing a disabled accessible bathroom for a paraplegic there. And it's a favorite project of mine, partly because it's unique from our perspective in that the benefit accrues to really one person, the paraplegic, but the impact on their life is so profound that I, I love it. And that's because in the in Bali being a Hindu island, if you're born with a disability, such as paraplegia or whatever the case may be, it's considered bad karma, and really sadly, they can be sort of lead very isolated, hidden away lives from the rest of society. And so to be able to bring a measure of independence and dignity in this, obviously personal area of going to the bathroom is just really profound. And yeah, it's a favorite. And our kids were able to get involved with drawing water from the well, taking that water over to the area where cement was being mixed, then get involved with mixing that cement, then putting in the wheelbarrows, and then wheeling it over to where the experts were doing the tricky parts. And that's probably a key thing to mention as well, is that our model is what I describe as a philanthro-volunteering model, in that it's the funds that our clients bring, which is the main benefit to the project. And that enables us to actually employ local people to do most of the work and certainly the tricky parts of the building projects and oversee us who are not, skilled people, but it still enables, say, my family or other families to get involved and get that interaction and engagement with the local people. So yeah, that's
Um,
my favorite.
I'm so glad that you clarified that for our listeners, because even as you were talking earlier, all of the projects that you mentioned sounded really cool. But in my head, I'm thinking, I am not qualified to build a stove. I am not qualified to install plumbing. These other people must be out there with bigger skill sets than I have. So that's really neat that you're able to, number one, employ locals to be a part of this project. But I also love that, make it so that kids can come in and do some hard physical labor and really have that sense of appreciation in this project as well. So that is very cool. How do you find, Chris, these projects to do? How do you know that there's a need? Do you have a program you use? Do people reach out to you? Do you travel around and look for things that need to be done? How does that work?
Yeah, well, it's all of the above, really. But for a lot of these things, it was done going back 20 years now, back to just prior to launch. So we launched Hands Up in 2006, and so for the 2 years prior to that, I just traveled the world and built relationships with different communities and travel partners. And that was just drawing on a network really of contacts, and then going out there and seeing firsthand what meeting with the community. And I think it's probably important to say, never going with any agenda or my own thoughts of what should be done in a particular community. Always taking the approach of listening and hearing from the community, firstly, if they'd like help, and then secondly, if they would, what that would look like. And from there, it's been a case of, then it's up to us to market it and see if there's people that want to get involved in that way. Yes, we do get, once we got more established, we were getting people, organizations coming to us and saying, hey, how about partnering with us, which is great. And then it's a case of myself or one of my team going out there to evaluate. But yeah, as I say, most of our projects were established right from 20 years ago.
That's really cool. And I love that. And I appreciate the fact that you go in and really listen to the needs of the community. Especially as an American, we kind of have the tendency to let people know what we think they need to do. And so I like that the project really talks to the people in the community about if there's a need and what that need is and if you can be a part. So I think that's a great system. For our listeners who this has sparked a ton of excitement and they want to know more, Talk to us about, and we'll link your websites in the show notes as well so they can find you that way. But what does that process look like? If somebody wants to know more or wants to sign up for one of these trips, how does that process really work?
The website's the best place to go. So handsupholidays.com. And there you can really search by destination or by service project type. And then hopefully there's good enough call to action buttons in terms of encouraging people to either just reach out and contact us for more information, or if they get enough information from the website and want to move to that step of planning a trip, then there are, as I say, hopefully prominent enough buttons of that say, I think, plan my trip. And then there's a form to complete. And this gets quite a bit of information around things we've touched on, destinations of interest, service types of interest, ages of the family, length of trip, budget, and also interest outside of the service project. So if it's zip lining or cooking class or whatever the case may be, people can tick those boxes or add any additional ones. And then that comes through. I actually handle all inquiries that come through. So it'll come through to me, and then I'll respond. One thing that our clients will specify is if they prefer email contact or phone contact, and we'll just take it from there, really. Then it gets into a sort of deep dive consultation to isolate and identify that where is the best destination or destinations for that family, and then prepare some suggested itineraries, and then tweak them if necessary, and then move to the booking stage.
That's cool. Then that's where all the fun gets started, right there at the end. That's cool. And I love that it's unique and that you take family and ages and budgets and locations, and you do a lot of work on your end to get these trips planned for the right trip for the right family. So I think that's very cool. Okay, I promised that I was not going to ask you any more hard questions, but I do have one last one that might be hard, maybe not. But through all of the work that you're doing, through this company, through being able to impact these specific people, these communities, in these families as well, changing family dynamics, teaching these young kids how to be a better world citizen, what is it you hope your legacy will be?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think I'd like my legacy to be that that the concept of luxury travel and giving back isn't a foreign concept. That it's something which, I don't know if it'll ever be mainstream, but it's something which is a well-known way to travel. And I'd overlay that with saying, yes, luxury, but also eco-luxury. And so sustainable luxury combining with service. So taking a holistic approach to a vacation is something that's more, ideally mainstream, but at least in the vernacular. It's something that people, when they think about going on a vacation, it comes up. Maybe, an active vacation or a safari or a luxury volunteer vacation is one of the things that people consistently think about.
I love that. That's a great answer. And the entire program and process just is really, really cool. I think it's something, Chris, that probably a lot of people and a lot of parents just don't really think through it. They think family vacation, they're trying to pick a destination. What fun stuff do we want to do? And then in a parent's mind, you're also trying to raise good people, good world citizens, but you feel like that's a totally separate thing. So I love that you can take these things and really blend them together. That's something I wish that was mainstream, but that's something you've kind of cornered the market on. And I also love that everything is eco-friendly. So just kind of that holistic across the board approach to being good world citizens. It is very, very cool. Do you have anything else that you would like our listeners to know about the work that you do?
The one thing that springs to mind, and this is really, it's a new brand that I've launched, and it's one that's not targeted, expressly at families. And it's kind of an extension of Hands Up Holidays with a twist. And what I mean by that is, in contrast to Hands Up Holidays, where there is these hands-on, physical service projects, the idea with impact destinations is that a traveler's philanthropic donation will enable the experts to do what they do best, but at the same time unlock a unique experience for the traveler. And a couple of quick examples on that would be, say, on a trip to Australia, guests can fund a scholarship for a promising Aboriginal art student, and in return have a exclusive private session with an established Aboriginal artist from whom they can commission their own unique work of art to take home with them. Or circling back to South Africa, on a safari day there, the guests can actually fund a rhino relocation from a reserve that's facing a lot of rhino loss due to poaching, and witness the rhino being relocated to a better protected reserve in Botswana. So this is where the guests actually hop into the helicopter with the veterinarian while he's darting the rhino, and then land and spend some time with a sedated rhino, and then actually see it getting airlifted off to, as I say, off to Botswana. So this is really, we spoke about leaving a legacy. These are about leaving a legacy as well. And having a pure philanthropic model is what Impact Destinations is about, nestled in with very, very high-end experiences like Hands Up Holidays offers.
That is, I keep saying this, that's so cool. Those are really, really neat things. And the Aboriginal art is also incredible because that's something that the family can bring back home. And that serves as a reminder of this experience and these lessons learned and all of that. So really very unique. You truly have been all over the world finding these different experiences. And I'm so very impressed by that. Well, for our listeners, we want to thank all of you for listening. This has been the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your host, Katie Beth Hand. And my guest today was Chris Hill. And to get connected with Chris and learn more about the work that he does, you can visit handsupholidays.com, or you can also visit impactdestinations.com. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know with all the work that you do, you are very busy. So I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to jump on with us. And I hope our listeners, I know that they will have really enjoyed this time.
Absolute pleasure, Katie Beth. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more about Stan and Katie Beth, go to pinnaclelegacylaw.com. You can also find links in the show notes.